Welcome to Heart Over Gold, the channel where love, kindness, and humanity shine brighter than any fortune. In today's story, Ethan Cross's life changes in an instant when his son chokes and a stranger, Dr. Olivia Hayes, saves him. What follows is a journey of healing, love, and second chances that will forever transform their lives. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments and keep up with our latest stories. They say life has a way of changing in the blink of an eye. For Ethan Cross, that change came in exactly 12 seconds. Imagine this: the moment you face your greatest fear, the one that makes your heart race and your stomach twist, you also find yourself caught in the grasp of a miracle you never saw coming. However, before we dive into this unforgettable, life-altering tale of fate and transformation, take a second to hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and drop us a comment telling us, do you believe in miracles? One moment Ethan was sitting back, enjoying his overpriced espresso on the balcony of his Manhattan penthouse. He was lazily flicking through a finance report he had already read twice, barely noticing the world around him. The next moment, everything he knew, the life he had carefully built, came crashing down. His 5-year-old son, Alex, was choking. The sound of the nanny's frantic scream was like a distant echo in his ears. For those first few seconds, Ethan froze, his body locked in a state of panic, his heart hammering against his chest. It was as if the world had slowed down. The porcelain cup in his hand shattered on the marble floor, its sound drowned by the frantic, ragged breaths coming from his lungs. Alex's face had turned an alarming shade of blue. His wide eyes were filled with terror, his tiny hands desperately clawing at his throat, but there was no sound, no air. What was supposed to be a calm Tuesday morning had suddenly turned into his worst nightmare, and in that moment, he feared the unthinkable. He was watching his son die. However, then, something extraordinary happened. A woman appeared, someone he did not recognize. She was kneeling beside Alex, her movements swift, efficient, and filled with a calmness that seemed almost otherworldly. Later, Ethan would learn that she was Dr. Olivia Hayes, a pediatric nurse, who had been visiting her mother on a nearby floor. She had heard the chaos in the hallway and had rushed in without a second thought, without hesitation. She positioned herself behind Alex and began performing the Heimlich maneuver, quick, sharp, and focused. 1, 2, 3 thrusts. And then a violent gag. A small, colorful piece of candy flew from Alex's mouth, landing softly on the polished floor. The sound of his first gasp of air was like music to Ethan's ears. His lungs filling with air in sync, the room erupted into relieved sobs, applause, and tears. However, Ethan did not move. He stood there, rooted to the spot, his eyes fixed on Olivia as she cradled Alex's head gently, whispering soothing words. You are okay, buddy. You are safe. You are okay. In that moment, she was not just a stranger. She was something far greater. Miracle. Olivia did not stick around for thanks. When the paramedics arrived, and Alex was declared stable, she gave her name, shared her credentials, and wrote a few brief notes for the ER team. Then, she stood to leave. Ethan, still recovering from the shock, stepped in her way, his voice raw with gratitude. Wait. Olivia turned, her expression tired but polite. Yes, Mr. Cross. Ethan blinked, still startled. How do you know who I am? A soft smile crossed her lips. You own the building. You're constantly in the news. You donated $1 million to Sloan Pediatrics last year. He blinked again, taken aback by how much she knew. Good cause, she added. But poor follow through. His brows rose in surprise. What do you mean? You didn't visit the wing. You didn't meet the kids. You just signed the check and left. Ethan's jaw tightened, surprised by the bluntness of her words. How do you know I work there? He asked. Olivia did not respond right away. She turned to leave, but then stopped, her voice low and firm. I didn't visit because I didn't want to be the face of charity, she said, her eyes meeting his with a quiet intensity. He stepped forward again, blocking her path. Let me thank you properly. You already did. No, I mean it, he insisted, his voice cracking with sincerity. Dinner, anything. She paused, studying him for a long moment, and then something shifted in her gaze. She saw through the walls he had built around himself. He was not just the CEO of a global corporation, the man with the sharp jaw and the sharp tongue. He was human. She saw him, really saw him, and in that instant, something unspoken passed between them. I'm not asking for a headline, he said quietly. Their eyes locked in a gaze that lingered just a little too long, both of them aware that there was something more than what was on the surface. Without another word, she left, her departure as quiet as her presence had been. However, her words stayed with him, echoing in his mind. Asterisk, you saved my son, but you did not know me. Asterisk, what do you think of Olivia's honesty? Moreover, what is it that makes Ethan want to thank her, truly thank her, beyond just the life she saved? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you have found this story as captivating as we have, do not forget to like this video and subscribe to stay tuned for the next part of this incredible journey. She halted abruptly and tapped into the child's drawing on the front window. It was Alex's, and she recognized the style. Immediately, the twisted trees, the fanciful rocket ship, the vivid, unrestrained hues, and underneath it, in shaky block letters for Olivia to return home, caused a rush of emotion to burst through her chest, so strong that it made her gasp, and she entered, her pulse pounding and scanning. Alex and Ethan were not present, but the clerk behind the desk was. She nodded, barely keeping herself together, and grinned, knowing that you were Olivia. And the cashier gave her an envelope with one handwritten letter inside that said, "You told me not to pursue you." It started with Ethan's well-known graceful script. "So I did not buy. I wanted you to know that Alex is still requesting you, and I am still hoping you will pardon me for being. We will be in Vermont for the next 2 weeks. The cabin address is on the reverse of this. Someone you had to walk away from. Letter Love V." She stood in the bookstore with an open door and no pressure. The letter gripped her hand for a long, eternal period, causing her pulse to tremble. What do you believe is causing her heart to slowly and painfully awaken after being dormant for so long? The actual significance of an open door in light of everything that has been lost, and how Olivia will conquer her fear to go through it. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below if this tale of second chances resonates with you. Moreover, a deep emotional awakening is taking hold. Remember to like this video and follow our channel. Olivia took a whole day to hold the letter and tuck it into the next touching chapter before making a decision, unfolding it a dozen times in her coat pocket, reading it again each time. That when the panic in her chest became unbearable, she convinced herself that going would only cause more blood if it were brought to Vermont. But there was a drawing stuck to the front window over 3,000 miles from Manhattan. A 5-year-old child opened a bookstore and continued to call her his favorite individual, and that was more important than pride or fear. She packed a tiny bag and told her new information, more than the fragments of her heart she had attempted to mend on her own. She needed a few days, so her supervisor booked a last-minute flight to Burlington, drove across a fog-covered countryside in a rental car with the heater running full blast and the windows cracked. Perhaps she felt smaller amid the wide, quiet calm of the cabin, or perhaps Vermont was colder than she remembered. Above a silent mirror, nestled at the very edge of a thick pine forest smooth lake, she did not know as she stepped onto the porch with her suitcase in hand what to expect. Ethan briefly opened the door before she could knock. The air was heavy with unsaid feelings as neither of them spoke. Alex's voice, then Olivia, he said joyfully, breaking the tension, and nearly crashed into her legs. He squealed with joy when she fell on her knees and hugged him firmly after being knocked down. "I missed you," he said, whispered. "I missed you too, buddy," in a voice muffled against her shoulder, reacting with tears in her eyes. Ethan observed from the doorway with one hand. He whispered, "You came," on the frame as if he needed to brace himself against the unreal reality of her homecoming. Olivia stood nodding as he spoke, his voice full of pure, unabashed optimism. "You mentioned that there would always be an open door on the first night." Little Alex happily showed her his new drawings, which Olivia had assisted him with. They said, a challenging puzzle with their heads hunched over. Ethan's cooking was poor, but she ate. He kindled a fire in the hearth, thankful for the basic domesticity in every meal. Moreover, they sat in quiet, the type of calm that was earned from mutual susceptibility. Later, after Alex had gone to sleep, Olivia entered the Ethan, captivated by the serene splendor of the moonlit woodland, followed his. "You did not have to come," he whispered, casting a comforting, warm shade. "I know. Why did you?" she asked, gazing off into the distance at the tall trees. "Because your son's laughter kept playing in my nightmares. And since your message did not beg for forgiveness, it simply offered a door," and Ethan tightened his throat and gulped hard. "Do I get forgiveness?" She turned to face him and answered, gently, but not all at once. "I would not be. They spent hours discussing everything and nothing here if I did not want to attempt." Olivia informed him that Sarah's favorite song, a mournful Chopin composition, was one that she used to play. Stored Michael's used baseball glove in her closet. They sat next to each other without touching or needing to. Felt sufficient. Olivia awoke the following morning to the heady scent of pancakes and laughter, and she went to the kitchen to follow. The happy sounds. Alex was trying to flip pancakes with Ethan's help while positioned uncomfortably on a stool. Alex's cheek was covered in help batter, and their clothing was all over the counter. Daddy said he is trying to be Alex proudly said, domestic. Ethan grinned, a dab of flour on his nose. Olivia's gentle, sincere smile touched her eyes as she failed terribly. He was aware that they stayed for 4 days. Therefore, she did not mean the pancakes. You are not failing. Letting the peaceful seclusion of the chalet envelop them, curing invisible wounds as the hearth fire dwindled on the 3rd night. Ethan gave her a, I wanted to give you something, he whispered, wrapping the present, but it is not flowers, jewelry, or anything else that costs more than $15. A leather-bound journal with the opening page reading, things I never stated but ought to have. It was full of brief, unpolished moments, feeling deep regrets and brittle dreams. The final page was empty except for, if you are reading this, I love you, was the only line at the top. Olivia traced her breath caught as she muttered, I am scared, using her fingers. Sincerity, a terrible confession. So am I, he answered, his eyes steadily reflecting hers. Vulnerability, but I want to spend the remaining years creating something genuine since I have spent enough time constructing empires. Observed him closely, observing the sincere need in his eyes. The man underneath the polished exterior, and this time she moved in and kissed him without holding back. Slowly, deeply, as if she had been waiting for a midway meeting all her life. Ethan's objectives have drastically changed, and how does Olivia's bravery motivate him to create something genuinely? If this tale of an unexpected love blossoming from the ashes resonates with you, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. If this video on grief touches your heart, please remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for the next touching chapter. That evening, Alex was soundly sleeping on his new bed in the cabin. Ethan opened the drawer next to Olivia's bed and took out a tiny velvet box. Her breath caught as her pulse leaped. No, he answered, speculating about her thoughts. Not that he opened the package, but there was a warm smile on his lips. She questioned in confusion if there was a single silver key to the cabin. In the next chapter, he explained in a gentle, promise-filled voice, wherever we write it, she takes it, feeling the great weight of its symbolism. She closed her fingers around the little metallic shape and said, I am ready, whispered. They took their time returning to Manhattan, allowing the woodland to envelop them for a little while longer, till it evolved into a deeply therapeutic work. They listened to tales from the roaring fire, they laughed heartily, and their happiness reverberated throughout the wooden beams. They fell in love in a way that was more akin to a quick, dramatic crash than a slowly. The sunrise warmed them, from the inside out, and they came back to early springtime Manhattan, the city shedding its winter coat under a canopy of golden light and early blossoms. Olivia relocated to Ethan's apartment after she brought over a tiny bag one evening, not because he asked, but because she just never retracted. Her scrubs started showing up in his laundry. Her favorite cup took up residence next to his on the kitchen shelf, and his 5-year-old son Alex started calling her room Mums. Without hesitancy or guidance, the word room frightened Olivia. That weight, that deep expectation, but it also comforted her since he meant it sincerely and organically, and Ethan never reprimanded him. He only grinned in a subdued manner, as if he were incredulous. After his cherished second chance suddenly came his way, Olivia resumed her part-time job at a non-profit. The downtown children's clinic seemed nice and tidy, but it was not the high-stakes pediatric trauma unit she had left behind. Felt significant, and above all, it was wholly hers. She established her guidelines. This time, she created her boundaries. Her identity was no longer determined by sacrifice or displayed on a hospital tag, carefully creating a life that was balanced and had boundaries. Then came a distinguished fundraiser for pediatric mental health. The gala was held at one of Olivia was forced to attend Ethan's slick downtown properties, not just as his date, but as the keynote speaker for the evening. They requested someone who has experienced both sides. He said that his eyes were sincere, Olivia, and the only person I can trust with that kind of honesty is you. She hesitated because she was not good at public speaking or spotlights. In front of a ballroom filled with shrewd politicians, wealthy billionaires, and immaculately groomed even though she is not into extremely beautiful women, she said yes, because she was aware that discomfort frequently accompanies progress. That evening, she was wearing a borrowed bravery that shimmered like the cloth in a navy satin gown. Ethan observed her from across the huge sparkling room as though he were witnessing something genuinely sacred. His steadfast eyes were full of profound respect. What do you believe to be the real impact of telling one's own story? Particularly, following a significant adversity, how will Olivia's openness speak to such a strong audience? Share your if you find this tale of bravery and facing one's truth inspiring. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. For the next crucial chapter, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Olivia is on the stage wearing her navy under the brilliant lights. Her satin gown shimmered, and for just 5 seconds her voice trembled a delicate human tremor. Then she steadied herself, drawing courage from the steadfast stares of Alex and Ethan in the front row. I am not, she started by speaking clearly and steadily. I am here to explain to you about statistics. You can read those in the program. I am here to discuss the quiet heartbreaks and the times in between emergencies. Difficult decisions, the kids who make it through, the ones who do not, and those who still hold them. A deep stillness descended upon the room, held like a collective breath. I have held hands during chemotherapy, seen trauma rooms, left hospital rooms, knowing that there would not be a child in the bed the next time I visited. Olivia looks straight at the crowd's strong, well-groomed faces. Yet I have also witnessed miracles. I have witnessed healing and the power of love when it enters a person's life at their darkest hour and remains there. Her eyes flickered. Healing does not always occur in hospitals, Ethan acknowledged in a quiet but profound way. When she finished, there was a roar of applause and an outpouring of emotions throughout the crowd. Ethan was the first to stand with a proud expression on his face, and then, after she left breathless and trembling from the intense passion she had just shown, he drew her up close and muttered, I have never in my life been more proud of someone. However, things changed the following morning when a news site published a hateful headline. Accusation of unprofessional behavior in pediatric unit against billionaire's girlfriend. Someone had anonymously revealed the specifics of the board, hearing, suspension, and initial complaint. According to anonymous quotes from hospital sources, the facts were misrepresented. Favoritism, manipulation, and a blurring of moral boundaries were unsightly and pervasive. Like wildfire, Ethan's public relations team acted right away, releasing vehement denials, declarations, and threats of legal action. But Olivia's non-profit, The Clinic, got dozens of angry letters from parents who were removing their children from programs. Donors threatened to stop supporting her once she was publicly referred to as a gold scammer. Digger, just another headline. What do you believe to be Olivia's most agonizing accusation, and why? How will she fight back against such public slander? Leave a comment below with your opinions on the tale of tenacity against injustice is rampant. Remember to like this video and follow our channel for the next stirring discovery. Ethan was so furious that he wanted to set everything on fire. But Olivia wouldn't. She continued in a hushed voice, let him know that I battled to be someone I could be proud of. I am adamant that I will not let that go now because others can speak louder than the truth. Ethan clenched his hands and said, I am not asking for protection. She looked him in the eye and said, I am asking you to believe me. He did, of course. Did, but Olivia was done allowing this to happen since it was about power, not belief. Hers being taken, she conducted a press conference by herself, standing in front of the cameras in a basic grey jacket. No handlers, no makeup, just her. And I am not perfect, she continued in a steady voice, but I am honest. I have spent my entire existence, I have made mistakes and lost patience, but I have walked into rooms that people avoid. I have never, ever taken advantage of a youngster for my benefit, and I most definitely did not fall in love with a man because of his wealth. She stopped and looked at the journalists' faces. I fell in love with him while they were looking at each other because he gave me the impression that I was more than what I had survived. The room was Olivia was completely quiet until someone questioned, do you regret the relationship? No, she answered, her integrity evident as she gazed directly into the camera. Because he and his son showed me that even in the worst of circumstances, love can endure, occurs, and I will never be sorry for it. By dusk, the tide had swung. The savage tale changed, and letters and donations poured in. Sincere regrets. The clinic promptly returned her to work full-time. The hospital, the people who mattered learned the truth that night, and the board publicly apologized. Ethan clasped Olivia's hand and drew her in as the city lights flickered below them. He replied, you did not just save Alex, as he stepped onto their building's rooftop. You saved me, too, he said in a voice so full of emotion that he fell to one knee. A straightforward, sincere gesture, without a velvet box or a well-planned speech, just a tiny gold ring between two fingers, softly gleaming in the low light, says, marry me. Olivia Hayes. A choking giggle escaped Olivia's lips as tears filled her eyes, pouring down her cheeks. Say that again, she said in a barely audible whisper. He said, marry me, again. Just once so I know it is real. Unflinching and brimming with perfect conviction, she gave one happy nod. Ethan exhaled and said, yeah, I will, yes. A tear ran down her cheek. Had not noticed he was dragging her into the most passionate kiss while placing the ring onto her finger of his life, and Nicholas Carter realized as his lips touched hers that he, a year later, their wedding was a dream come true because they had at last discovered something more valuable than all the money in the world, due to a lavish setting or ostentatious accents, but because it was genuine. When Olivia went down the aisle, her eyes, Ethan was fixed on his, knowing that he had never been more sure of anything in his life. But what about the wedding? What mattered most was what they created together. With Ethan's vast resources and Olivia's intense desire, they started the Hayes Cross Initiative, a program aimed at assisting young women in pursuing business careers, giving them the opportunities and guidance that Olivia had previously struggled so hard to obtain on her own. Their nights were filled with peaceful chats, laughing, and an expanding love, while their days were full of deep purpose. Deeper with each breath taken together, and each morning when Ethan awoke beside he understood that he had at last discovered something that money could never purchase, thanks to the woman who completely transformed his life. Joy, steadfast love, and a future worth all the money they invested. Alex joined them on their honeymoon in Italy. Of course, it was not a traditional beginning to a marriage, but before that, neither of them had led typical lifestyles. Instead, they savored luscious gelato in Venice, danced barefoot in the gardens beneath the stars, and strolled throughout Florence's cobblestone alleyways. Olivia laughed more in those 2 weeks than she had in the previous 10 years when living in a tiny villa with a view of the coast. Ethan silently committed a symphony to memory, and when Alex slept the following night, under soft bedding and wide windows, they whispered promises to one another in the room. It was not flawless, but it was always real. This concludes your story. Then late one day, you received a call. Amid the sweltering summer heat in Manhattan, Olivia entered her clinic for her director greeted her after her regular work. There is something you should see, she began, passing her an unmarked envelope with an unpublished title within a printed article draft. Shouted, "The Nurse, the Billionaire and the Other Son." Olivia's heart stopped. According to the report, Ethan's second child, a son, was the result of an affair. During his the article implied that Olivia had consented to marry Sarah, who is now living overseas. As part of a discreet agreement to prevent the story from continuing, you should only marry him after learning this knowledge. It was a terrible, exact lie that was made public, but it felt very intimate because Olivia asked him that night, "Ethan, after someone had dug too deeply and too closely, is there anything I am unaware of?" "No," he responded slowly as he gazed at her in shock. "There is not another child hidden." Her voice was hushed. "So why does this seem so particular?" He took a seat and let out a hefty breath. "A truth imprisoned for after Sarah passed away. There was a person before you for years. It was not serious. But I hired a private investigator after she told me she was pregnant a few weeks before her disappearance. She had fled the country." He gazed up with raw eyes and never affirmed anything. Then the late one call came. As the city moaned in the sweltering July heat back in Manhattan, Olivia entered her clinic for a typical shift, and her director greeted her. "There is something you should see," she said, passing her an unmarked envelope containing an unpublished draft of a printed piece. That title, Olivia's heart stopped when she yelled, "The Nurse, the Billionaire and the Other Son." According to the report, Ethan's second child, a son, was the result of an affair. During the article implied that Olivia had consented to marry Sarah, who is now living overseas, as part of a discreet agreement to prevent the story from continuing. You should only marry him after learning this knowledge. Public, even though it was a nasty, exact falsehood. It felt quite intimate because Olivia questioned him that evening after. "Someone had dug too deeply and too closely. Ethan, is there anything I am unaware of?" "No," he responded slowly as he gazed at her in shock. "There is not another child hidden. Life, I promise you," she said quietly. "So why does this feel so particular?" He took a seat and let out a hefty breath. "A truth imprisoned for years. After Sarah passed away, there was someone before you. It was not serious, but a few weeks prior to her disappearance, she informed me that she was pregnant, so I hired a private investigator." He looked up, "But I never verified anything because she had left the country. I have not informed anyone, not even my lawyers, because I did not want to," and his eyes are raw. chase ghosts. Olivia remained motionless. Ethan, if there is any possibility, I am aware of silence, then she whispered. What would you do if it were true? Into the chamber, without hesitation, they said. I would find him, I would bring him home. The story was leaked a few days later. Not the entire article draft, just a title and a blurry picture of Ethan leaving a building that he had not entered in years. And the media covered the cross scandal, which was buried by Olivia's marriage. She adored Alex, but she sensed the change on the job, so she kept her head down and went to work. Even at the clinic, when some parents gazed at her, and on the street in the supermarket, Ethan remained silent in public, vehemently defending Olivia as if they were not sure whether to appreciate or condemn her. After conducting a private search, he found a 6-year-old named Leo residing in Marseille, France, where a woman refused to take a DNA test, changed her name, and contacted no one from her past, verified that he was Ethan's son. Olivia silently reviewed the report before looking at Ethan. So what? I will go get him now. She nodded. I will be joining you. Marseille. It was calm and warm, with summer markets and music filling the streets, yet Olivia waited outside the little yellow house on the hillside, and they could feel the tightness in Ethan's shoulders. The woman standing there appeared exhausted and thinner than in the picture. The door opened slowly. Behind her, a boy with dark curls and large, serious eyes stared at her warily. Like Alex, Ethan said, I just want to meet. I am not here to fight you. After examining him for a while, the woman moved aside, and for the Ethan crouched down in front of the youngster for the first time and said, Hey Leo. I think I might be your Leo. Did not say anything, but he did not run, and that was plenty. To get them started, Dad stayed in France for 2 weeks, during which Olivia saw Ethan gradually gain the trust of a youngster who had only seen him in passing, kicked a soccer ball, played cards, and discussed space, animals, and Americans. Leo had not yet called him Dad during breakfasts, but when they bid each other farewell at the Will I See You Again, the youngster asked, running after Ethan and giving him a tight hug at the airport. He bent down and said, I promise, Olivia. Put Alex to bed back in Manhattan. With drowsy eyes, he gazed up at her and asked, Do I still get to keep you forever? Olivia always kissed his forehead when she asked his voice in a tiny voice. But that night, as Olivia turned to face Ethan as he slept next to her and spoke into the darkness, Do you ever think this is too much for you? No, she responded, her heart bursting. I believe life has finally stopped taking, and 6 months later, he grabbed for her hand under the covers and said, And I think we are just getting started. Louder and warmer resided in the Manhattan townhouse, and Leo was moving in. Months of paperwork, therapy sessions, meetings with attorneys, and mediators. But Leo had replied after Ethan had been a kind and patient presence. Did not call Ethan's father yet, but he did so when he had a nightmare, which meant Olivia had become the calm, steady focal point of the home. Instead of pushing, she listened. Alex quickly adjusted once Leo gave her space, and he returned the cautious trust. He informed everyone that he had a bonus brother sooner than anyone had anticipated. And I found it admirable that Leo excelled at Legos but struggled with Mario Kart. The boys were different. One is boisterous and creative, while the other is cautious but somehow lovely. They operated similarly to the 2 parents who reared them. Olivia returned to her full-time clinic employment, although this, at the time, she concentrated on community projects rather than trying to prove anything, providing essential medical care to underprivileged kids. She established a scholarship in Michael's honor. In honor of her late brothers, Ethan matched each gift, but only after requesting her consent. She had merited that sort of deference. He was now more aware of, in late autumn, when the leaves were falling and the holidays drew near, Ethan organized a low-key event with little publicity, just the family. One weekend, he took Olivia back to the cabin in Vermont. The 2 of them hiked, conversed, and held each other. And on the last night he surprised her with a second ring under the canopy of 1,000,000 stars. It was simple and elegant. Inside is an inscription that reads, Not because I lost, but because I found. This time, Olivia smiled, gave him a long kiss, and whispered instead of crying, Forever. They had a second life and did not require a second wedding, was sufficient. Olivia took the test after learning she was pregnant several months later. 20 minutes in the restroom, stunned not afraid. Overcome by the tremendous Ethan entered with delight, saw her face, and fell on his knees right away. Are you all right? He inquired, and she gave him the test with his eyes after nodding. Silently, he held her for a long, silent minute while his eyes enlarged and then filled with tears. They told the lads, You are incredible, repeatedly until she started to believe it. Leo remained silent as Alex threw his arms around them both and yelled with delight. At first, everything was peaceful. Later that evening, Olivia discovered him seated on the stairs by yourself. Are you okay? He looked up and said, I am not sure how to be a huge brother. She sat next to him. When I had my brother, neither Alex nor I did. Just being yourself is sufficient. Leo, you do not need to be flawless. Leaning into her shoulder, she asked, do I still get to stay? Her voice constricted. When their baby was born, she spoke to him with everlasting affection and said, you are not going anywhere. After Olivia's mother, Leo, hosted her first Alex concert, they gave her the name Alina. Ethan's love-filled off-key tears were more intense than anyone else's. Pure happiness, and Olivia observed the life she had never dreamed of appear all around her, piece by piece, like the last flawless moment of a complicated puzzle. A few years later, Olivia was standing outside the nursery in the hallway. Leo was reading in the living room, and Alina had just fallen asleep in Ethan's arms. Spoke out loud to Alex, and the entire home was filled with the gentle, golden light that comes only when love has been won. When a family feels completely at home, Ethan came to stand behind her. You okay? He asked, putting his arms around her waist and gently drawing her back against his chest. She leaned, returning to him in total tranquility. He grinned and said, I am better than okay, I am alive. I kissed the top of her head, but I did not express gratitude for what she muttered. She turned in Alex's arms, her eyes meeting his, and thanked him for saving me. Ethan, you allowed yourself to be saved. Outside, snow started to fall, and there was a soft silence. Genuine, and their lives unfolded in a messy, lovely, unscripted way that was not created from ideal beginnings. But Ethan Cross once believed that second chances, power, wealth, and control were the only things that mattered. And success was everything. Then came Olivia Hayes, the lady who disproved his theory. She was not only a passing employee, she was his biggest obstacle, his most valuable lesson, and his greatest love. But ultimately, it wasn't she was the one who transformed his life, not wealth or influence. Now, they stand together, not only as spouses but as co-conspirators in life, driven by love and purpose. It is more than simply discovering someone. It is about picking them every day. If this story resonated with you, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Set alerts to ensure you do not miss another touching story. Because sometimes the most unexpected love can transform everything if we dare to allow it to. Stories lead to the most memorable love,